I had a rule for 22 years. I didn't bring cases home. When I walked out of Providence, Portland at the end of a shift, the patient stayed in the unit. That was non-negotiable. My husband will tell you I had what he called an internal airlock, some moment between the parking garage and the front door where something in me clicked off and I became just a woman walking into her kitchen. He meant it as a compliment. He understood it kept me functional. It was how I survived 22 years of watching people die. I broke that rule once. The shift where I met Emma, I sat in my car in the driveway for 40 minutes, engine off, couldn't go inside. I kept thinking about one thing, not a vital sign, not a procedure, not a clinical problem I hadn't solved, the sound of her laughing. Emma was 6 years old, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, in relapse after her first remission. If you're not familiar with what that means clinically, she had already gone through the hardest part once. Her counts had looked good, and then they didn't. She came back to us with febrile neutropenia that had tipped into septic shock, and by the time she reached the pediatric ICU, her oxygen saturation was dropping fast. We had her on supplemental oxygen, antibiotics running, blood cultures drawn, the whole protocol. She was small. Children in that unit are always small in a way that adult patients aren't. Not just in size, but in the particular vulnerability of a child who knows something is very wrong, but doesn't yet have the words for what very wrong means at this scale. But Emma was also, despite everything, vivid. That's the word I keep coming back to. When she had energy, she talked about her dog, about the show she'd been watching before the readmission, about the fact that the jello in this hospital was the wrong shade of green. Her parents took shifts beside her. Her mother was a kindergarten teacher. Her father worked construction. They were the kind of people who fill a room with quietness, present, steady, not asking for more than the truth. Emma had been in my care for 2 days when it happened. It was a morning. She was awake, propped against her pillows, the oxygen cannula in place, saturation holding, no acute crisis. By every observable measure, she was just a small girl in a hospital bed. And she was looking at the space above the doorframe the way children sometimes look at things that have their full attention. I noticed it the way you notice everything in an ICU. Cataloging, assigning to a differential, watching for pattern. Her eyes were tracking. Her expression was engaged. Her lips were moving slightly, like someone following a conversation I couldn't hear. I said, "Emma, what are you looking at?" She looked at me with the direct, slightly amused expression she got when she thought a question had an obvious answer. "The angels," she said. "What are they doing?" And here is the part I have told exactly 4 people in 5 years. She laughed. Actually laughed. The real kind, involuntary, the kind that surprised her. She pressed one hand over her mouth, the way children do when they're trying not to laugh in church, and said, "They're arguing about who gets to take me. It's kind of silly." I sat with that for a moment. "Does it bother you?" I asked. She considered it. "No," she said. "They're nice. There's one with really crazy hair, like springs." She coiled her fingers in the air beside her head, a tight spiral gesture. "She keeps winking at me. I think she's trying to get me to pick her." I wrote it in the chart as patient reporting vivid visual phenomena, affect appropriate, no distress indicators present. Monitoring. Emma died 3 days later. Early morning, when the corridor was quiet and the sky outside was just beginning to lighten. Her mother was in the room. Her father had stepped out for coffee and made it back before it ended. The attending physician's final note documented one detail I have read many times since. Emma died smiling. There is a pediatrician named Melvin Morse. He practiced at Seattle Children's Hospital in the 1980s, and he wasn't looking for near-death experiences when he found them. He was treating a 7-year-old girl, he calls her Katie in his published accounts, who had been pulled from a swimming pool after a prolonged submersion and resuscitated after cardiac arrest. When she recovered consciousness, she described what had happened during her clinical death in detail that stopped him. She described the resuscitation attempt accurately. She described a tunnel. She described a presence she called Heavenly Father. Morse did what most physicians do in that situation. He attributed it to an unusual neurological event and moved on. And then it happened again, with a different child, and again with another. He spent the next several years conducting what became one of the most systematic studies of near-death experiences in children in the medical literature. His book, Closer to the Light, published in 1990, documented hundreds of accounts from pediatric patients who had come close to death and survived. Cardiac arrest, near drowning, severe trauma. Children from different backgrounds, different ages, different medical circumstances, none of whom had been briefed on what others had reported. What he found was consistency he could not explain away. Children, Morse argued, are uniquely valuable witnesses to this phenomenon, not because they are more credible than adults in any conventional sense, but because they are less contaminated. A 6-year-old girl has not read the near-death experience literature. She has not seen the Renaissance paintings of angels with elaborate wings. She has no template for what the dying are supposed to see. And yet, across his study population, the accounts tracked with each other and with adult reports in ways that ruled out shared cultural programming. The beings children described were consistently luminous, warm, present without being frightening. And here's what Morse noted that I find particularly relevant when I think about Emma. Unlike the adults in most cultural representations, the children almost never described wings. They described light and warmth and specific faces. What they saw did not match the image. It matched something else entirely. And then there is the phenomenon that the research documents carefully, because it is the hardest to explain away. Emily Williams Kelly, a researcher at the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, has studied cases where near-death experiencers describe encountering specific individuals, not abstract presences, but recognizable people. In approximately 1/3 of those cases, the person described is someone who died before the experiencer was born, or someone the experiencer had no real relationship with. The brain, if it's constructing comforting imagery from stored memory, should draw from what it knows, from familiar faces, from relationships that shaped it, not from people it has never encountered. Several weeks after Emma's death, her father called the unit asking to speak with me. I took the call in the break room with the door closed. He said that the previous weekend they had visited his parents. His father was in his 80s, and during the visit, Emma's father had done something he hadn't planned. He described, as carefully as he could, what Emma had told me. The woman with the crazy curly hair, like springs, the one who kept winking. His father didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "That was my mother. She died in 1977. Her hair curled tight, like wire, like springs, that's exactly it, went gray toward the end, but never once went straight. And she was a winker. She always winked at the grandchildren when she wanted them on her side." There is no photograph of her that Emma could have seen. Her paternal great-grandmother died 11 years before Emma's father graduated high school. Nothing in the house, nothing in an album, no online record. She had lived before casual documentation. Emma described her, accurately. While her oxygen saturation was dropping and her fever was climbing, Emma described a woman she had never met and found her funny and warm and just a little bit pushy about the winking. I have thought many times about what the materialist model requires us to accept in order to explain that conversation. And I find I am no longer willing to accept it. Here is the thing I have almost never said out loud about that shift. It wasn't the first time a child had told me something I couldn't explain. In my 3rd year of nursing, I was in a general pediatric ICU before I moved to Providence. There was a boy named Charlie, 8 years old, traumatic brain injury from a fall. He had a period of apparent recovery, and one night around 11 o'clock, he woke up lucid in the way that sometimes happens near the end. He told me he'd been in a garden. He said the fireflies were there, which surprised me. It was November in Oregon, and we don't have fireflies here. And he said his dog Max was there. Max had died the previous spring. He was calm, content. He said the garden smelled like rain. I charted it as post-hypoxic visual phenomena. I moved on to my other patients. He died 4 days later. His mother called the unit after the funeral. She wanted to know if Charlie had said anything at the end. Specifically, she wanted to know if he had seemed afraid. I told her I didn't remember much from that night. I remembered everything. The fireflies, the garden that smelled like rain, the dog, the way he said it, not in the frightened voice of someone hallucinating, but in the calm voice of someone telling you about a place they'd been and liked. I remembered all of it. I just didn't know what to do with what I had. I didn't have the permission, inside myself, inside the clinical framework I'd been handed, to give her the truth of what her son had told me. So I gave her nothing, and she went home without it. That is the single moment from 22 years of nursing that I would undo if I could. Just that one. If Charlie's mother is somehow watching this, I know the odds of that. I want her to know. Her son was in a garden. He was not afraid. His dog was there. Whatever he had seen in the minutes before he came back to me that night, it was good enough to make him calm in a way that surprised me at the time, though I didn't know how to say so. I believe that now. I think I believed it then too, somewhere underneath the clinical language that had been given to me to overwrite it with. If you are sitting with someone right now, a child, a parent, a spouse, and they are telling you things that sound impossible, please don't do what I did. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to explain it or defend it or place it inside any framework that makes it acceptable to you. You don't have to know what it means. You just have to let them describe it without making them feel like they need to take it back. That's the whole thing. That's all it requires. The last sound Emma made that I actually heard, not in the room at the end, but the day she told me about the angels, was that laugh. The real one. The involuntary one she tried to cover with her hand. A 6-year-old girl with leukemia, watching beings of light argue over her with the expression of someone watching something silly on television. Finding it funny, not afraid, not in pain, at least not in that moment. Just, present, and amused, and completely unafraid of what was coming. I've thought about that laugh for 5 years. I don't think I'll ever stop. If that is the quality of what was in the room with her, if that is what was waiting, then I think we spend an enormous amount of our lives being afraid of something that, when it finally arrives, turns out to be the kind of thing that makes a 6-year-old laugh. I find that worth holding on to. Take care of each other.